So, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our fifth annual research celebration. And here's to another Seeds Week. Seeds Week is an incredible time for us here at the university. It's an acronym for Spring Enrichment and Engagement Days. And there's been plenty of engagement going on around this campus. Today, we get an opportunity to celebrate this academy, but academia, well done. From the research and innovation to instruction and scholarly writing, research is happening and academic life is happening throughout this campus. And so it's a showcase opportunity for us today, and we're so proud of it. This is a very, very special event. It allows us, including all of you, to highlight the accomplishments of specific peers, but also to celebrate their individual, departmental, and more importantly, their team accomplishments. When I announced recently that I would be stepping down as Chancellor of the University of Massachusetts, Boston, one of the first things I was quick to remind the university community of was our status as a Carnegie-recognized campus. I wrote then that we have achieved Carnegie recognition as a doctoral institution with a higher research activity and earned more than one Carnegie Community Engagement classification. In the past 10 years, we have had an incredible journey together, and that remains a point of pride for all of us. And this event, in its fifth year, remains a point of pride for me personally, but each and every one of you should be proud of it as well. I want to thank Vero and her team. I want to thank Ernie and everyone else that's serving us today, university events and ceremonies. I want to thank my team that makes sure that all of this is, I'm old school, so I say videotape, whatever you're doing to make sure it gets streamed out or whatever it's doing today. Thank you for that. Thank you for coordinating. Let's give them a round of applause. So I see that this year's theme is again the teaching soul, research and mentoring. When I first heard that title introduced as the event's theme last year, I recalled my arrival in Boston as a young college student. And I recalled how a solid mentor guided me to start the journey that will one day lead to me leading this university and having an experience that I wouldn't trade for the world. My mentorship goes back even further than that, however. I'm reminded as I get ready to go home to Pittsburgh to participate in a commencement ceremony there, that as a teenage student, I spent many days at the University of Pittsburgh's Upward Bound program. And that structure provided me with the opportunity to recognize early the importance of mentors and how they have sort of helped my life in the matriculation process and the maturity that was developed to shape my career and also to shape the fact that I would get on a plane, a kid from a still city like Pittsburgh, to come to a great higher education environment like this one, to learn, to lead, and to serve. And so I am so grateful to be among colleagues like you, dedicated staff, dedicated faculty members, dedicated students, willing to give of your time outside of the classroom, outside the lab, outside the regular office hours. So today we also celebrate the mentees who've benefited greatly from these relationships and whose lives have no doubt changed for the better, as mine has, as I reflect back on the mentors who enabled that to happen. Thank you for the individual guidance. Thank you for your unique opportunities for learning that you represent, that they had received in preparation for careers in the sciences, public policy, among others. Employers today, as you know, value experience. They value that as much as they do a solid academic foundation. The University of Massachusetts, Boston offers students like today's presenters, including today's presenters, the opportunity to obtain both over the summer and through our Beacon Success programs including internships, service, civic engagement projects, mentoring projects, research projects, and much, much more, an opportunity to be not only mentored, but to give back and serve. So again, enjoy this day and this event. It is a celebration of your work, our faculty, and your ambition and achievement. And most importantly, it's a celebration of our students, some of whom will be walking across that stage not too long from now for commencement. So today, we're going to hear from two faculty members and their mentees, as well as a mentor and a mentee from the Edward M. Kennedy Institute for the United States Senate. No doubt, we will hear from them the uplifting nature of mentor-mentee relationships. We're going to hear from faculty members how their students inspired them. And we'll hear from students the ways they have been able to begin mapping and developing their futures. First up will be Philip Kukov, and he's assistant professor of computer engineering and the director of the Cyber Physical Systems Research Laboratory. Our professor is an expert in embedded systems, and I love that he says of mentorship, professors without mentees are nothing but sidewalk prophets. The greatest joy of academia is the mentoring and nurturing of young minds. We as professors should strive for our mentees to one day become our mentors. You'll also be hearing from Grant Rudd, Professor Kukov's mentee, an electrical engineering major with an interest in robotics and a member of the class of 2018. You'll also hear a Health Equity Scholars Program presentation from Professor Tiffany Donaldson and her mentee, Naja Walton. The Scholars Program falls under the auspices of the UMass Center for Health Equity Intervention Research, and whose Education and Training Corps established the Pipeline Program in cooperation with the campus's ethnic institutes. The core goal is to increase the number of health professionals, particularly underrepresented students, who are committed to careers in racial and ethnic health disparities research. Finally, we have mentor Lena Canon, and volunteer and mentor program manager at the Edward M. Kennedy Institute for the United States Senate, her mentee, Alyssa Benafou, a philosophy and public policy major in our honors college, someone you can find all around this university in every nook and cranny of this place. She's going to be graduating later this month. She's also a Beacon Student Success Fellowship winner. She was granted $2,000 toward her unpaid internship, so it became a paid internship. An extremely important asset to the EMK team. I look forward to hearing from you as well, Alyssa. We know that your internship has helped shape your career goals and has helped grow and mature your goals and your interests. The Kennedy Institute has partnered with the University of Massachusetts to support our students through internships that are beneficial to their educational experiences. We also have worked with the Office of Student Leadership and Community Engagement to provide special programming for the annual Social Justice Conference. The Gaston Institute is also hosting the end of the year celebration of Hispanic Heritage Month and increased participation in education of civic engagement to Latino communities through this as well. We look forward to hearing from all of our presenters. So as we prepare to get underway, let me remind you that this is a celebration of research, but also a celebration of relationships, and how much more powerful both are when joined through the prism of mentorship and one that's done in such an incredible academic setting as this. These relationships are forged through research from both the faculty and the student perspective to ensure the members of the University of Massachusetts Boston community make their mark on this Commonwealth, this nation, and the world in tremendously meaningful ways. This is the essence of our teaching soul. So thank you, get ready, sit back with me, and I look forward to witnessing a wonderful program today. But before we do that, it's my pleasure to introduce our provost and our vice chancellor for academic affairs, Dr. Winston Langley. Now, you know Winston loves this even more than I do. He loves the fact that we can have a program like this, and so I'm so honored, Winston, to have you here and to see a program like this continue to happen at this university. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chancellor. The Chancellor said everything. I'll simply say, before calling Grant Rad and Professor Philip Krukov to take over, that this century is defined by many things. Two of these many things, and perhaps at its forefront, are complexity and the search for innovative ways of addressing complexity. One of the areas of this university's academic life that has consistently sought to move in this direction is our young but rather impressive engineering program. And it gives me particular pleasure, especially when I hear the Chancellor speaking of the mentor-mentee relationship, to bring to this podium Grant Rad and Professor Philip Krukov. Thank you.
Hi. So, can we have the presentation? Okay, hi. My name is Philip Chuchkov from the Department of Engineering. I know there's a couple of squiggly lines over my name, and that's okay. As the Provost and the Chancellor said, we are a new department. Thanks to the vision that this university had, we are now a young program that's expanding. We are offering 2 programs currently, 4-year programs in electrical and computer engineering, but we hope to grow in mechanical and other areas as well. We want to compete with the best and the brightest, and we luckily have the best and the brightest students that come to UMass Boston. So I would like to talk to you briefly today about what is it that we do. What is it that Grant did, and how our relationship in research and teaching and mentoring really has developed over the couple of years that we've been working together. My lab is the sci-fi lab, and you might ask yourself why sci-fi? Is it science fiction? It's not really, not quite, right? But science fiction is not so far off. Today's fiction is tomorrow's reality, and this is the reason why the double play in the name of the lab, but it really stands for cyber physical systems. So what are cyber physical systems? I'll just draw your attention to the quote that the National Science Foundation Cyber Physical System Program says, the cyber physical systems technology will transform the way people interact with engineered systems, just as the internet has transformed the way people interact with information. Now, this is a lot to say, especially when you think about where we are 20 years ago, where we were without the internet and where we are today. So think of cyber physical systems being the internet of the physical world. It'll transform the way we interact with the physical world. There'll be feedback, but also there'll be actuation upon it. So in terms of what exactly they are, the technical specification is they're embedded in network computing systems that sense and act upon the physical world in a closed-loop fashion. That means we sense the world and we act upon it in an intelligent way. And where are they? They're pretty much everywhere. Anything that you've heard of recently that's a hot topic, Internet of Things, robotics, autonomous vehicles, healthcare, energy, advanced manufacturing, all these things can benefit from cyber-physical systems. The design elements of the cyber-physical systems research are particularly important. These are interdisciplinary skills that really involve multiple frontiers, such as hardware design, software design, and of course, the physical building and testing of these devices. In terms of hardware, our lab is equipped with advanced equipment for sensing and actuation. So we have robots, we have motors, we have sensors, advanced cameras. We develop circuits, interface them to the robotics and to these physical devices, and we do a lot of 3D printing. We do a lot of CNC milling, laser cutting, and advanced manufacturing in our lab. And I'll show you some examples of that in the upcoming slides. In terms of software, we do everything from embedded software to the ones and zeros to smartphone applications to make these cyber-physical systems accessible to the everyday users. So skills such as C, C++ programming, assembly, Python, MATLAB, VHDL, you name it, they're all really useful for people who want to engage in this kind of research. On top of it all, it is a physical science. So you have to be able to characterize what you build. You have to really apply your product has to interact with the physical world. It's not just theory, it's experimental research. So a lot of these skills that you see are built over time and with the equipment that we have. The Cyber Physical Systems Lab is in the Science Center, 3rd floor, room 19. I want to invite you to come by anytime, drop by anytime. It's not really a kindergarten. This is a picture of the recent, we had a welcome day for the kids. As you see, Grant is in the top right, and then the other student that I work with closely is Liam Daly. He's on the left picture, but they were highly entertaining. We had a good outcome. I hope you can come, and if you do come, Grant and Liam will help you and show you around. We'll be more than happy to. We have robots. The most popular one is the Baxter robot, the red one over there with a dog face on it. That's Choo Choo. That's Grant's Shih Tzu. She's really the lab director. I'm just her servant. And as you see, we have humanoid robots, but we also have a lot of 3D printing and other electronic equipment. So please come by anytime and we'll be happy to give you a tour. That being said, I want to draw your attention quickly about some projects that we do in the lab, and projects that specifically Grant has worked on and contributed tremendously. The first one is a robotic hand exoskeleton to be used to assist individuals with limited hand motor function with their physical therapy tasks. And this is particularly for people with stroke. The Grant developed and manufactured this first prototype that we have in the lab. And it's a smart glove that tracks the progress through the treatment plan of the patient and also communicates this the progress via the cloud to the therapist. The other project that Grant worked on is a motion-based robotic manipulator control system. And basically, this is a very difficult subject, especially if you think about it. When you take a look at the picture to the left, that's a robotic arm. It has 6 degrees of freedom, which means it can move in free space in all sorts of ways. These are used in assembly lines, and the main point of this project that Grant worked on was to dynamically and intelligently avoid obstacles such as humans in the way. We don't want to injure anybody in the way, so Grant developed an algorithm that senses the environment and reacts accordingly. And then most recently, we have developed an embedded system for a device, really, for the treatment of oral cancer using photodynamic therapy. The principal investigator for this project is Dr. Jonathan Chancellor from the physics department. And I work collaboratively with him and Grant and Liam and a whole set of people to develop a device that was used in India this March to successfully treat the first patient who had oral cancer and the lesion went away. So I don't claim to cure cancer, but Grant does. So what you see over here is exactly he built everything. And we have a mobile lab that controls all of this. So instead of going too much into the details, I just want to kind of give you an overview of what this guy is capable of. And I don't want him to get too hot-headed, but he literally is the best student that I've ever had, period. Undergrad, grad, at any place. So I want to welcome Grant Rudd.
Well, thank you for those kind words, Philip. I don't know if I deserve them, but I try my hardest every day. So what I'm going to talk to you about now is my experience with the Beacon Student Success Fellowship and what we accomplished last summer. So I was one of the students that was fortunate enough to receive the fellowship. For me, it was a big deal. I'm an older student, continuing, self-supporting. So funding, an additional source of funding is really necessary for me and my colleagues to take part in great experiential learning opportunities and to give something back to this campus. So what we did, what we spent most of last summer doing is utilizing some laboratory funding to set up a space specifically designed for undergraduate students to be able to conduct research and do experiments on various robotic platforms. What really appealed to me about this project was, one, trying to foster a sense of excitement and build a community around robotics in our engineering program. There's a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of talent, and trying to get a group of people together that have the same passion for robotics that I do. That's one thing I really enjoyed about doing this project. The other thing is giving back and kind of building this mentor-mentee relationship amongst my peers as well. A lot of robotics is, a lot of the stuff I've learned has been through self-study, through a lot of hard work. If I can give back and help my fellow students kind of on the same learning track, I mean, that would really mean a lot to me. The first thing we did was we identified the resources necessary to set up this space. Robotics really requires a wide scope of knowledge. There's electrical engineering, computer engineering, mechanical engineering, computer programming, and knowledge of manufacturing. This all goes into building one robotic platform. So the learning curve is quite steep for someone who doesn't have this experience. So we focused on acquiring equipment that could help kind of abstract some of this learning curve away. So we bought smart motors, which kind of take away all the low-level control. You tell the motor, I want to go this fast, it does it. For those students who wanted to focus more on algorithm development, don't want to do so much hardware development, we bought robots like Baxter there. We bought a small little humanoid platform. And then we also bought various qualification equipment. We bought motion sensing cameras to do kinematic analysis of robotics. We bought different sensors to kind of track the robot's progress in the room, track its proximity to other robots. So by the end of the summer, we came up with a great space that we can carry out various experiments. My time researching and communicating with all the professionals in the industry proved invaluable in figuring out what skills are needed to acquire a job upon graduation in this field. I also completed the setup and installation, and I did training on all of these machines. And robots like Baxter, that is industry standard right now. That's the company Rethink Robotics from Boston, who put this robot out about 5 or 6 years ago. And this is really the way industrial robotics is going, kind of a mobile humanoid platform that can be taught intuitively. I also, using the few weeks I had left in the summer, began doing some of my own research on various path planning algorithms, autonomous control systems, and computer vision. So why I think robots are important in the classroom and to learning as engineers, fundamentally, engineering students are hands-on learners. I know as a kid, I was always taking apart the toaster or the washing machine and getting in trouble because I wanted to know how it worked. We're like that. We use our hands. We have to see how something works. We have to experiment. That's really the soul of engineering. It's the practical implementation of science. Leading into that, the classes are very theoretical. They're very math-based. Robotics teaches you how to implement what we learn in class in the real world. And it also is key to developing an intuitive sense about how real systems work. As the great scientist Yogi Berra said, in theory, theory and practice are the same. In practice, they are not. So there are these peculiarities that you get when working with a real system that you need to know about. Experiential learning in general provides great self-discipline. The tasks are much more open-ended. You have to budget your time. You have to figure out what you need to research, what resources you need to use. And it's really where you develop your sense of problem solving that is so key to being an engineer. Lastly, robots are fun. As you can see from the slide that Philip showed previously, the kids that came to our lab for Take Your Kids to Work Day, they were having a blast playing with our robots, interacting, throwing balls, having them chase it. I mean, I'm like a 5-year-old when I'm working in this lab. So, a quick example of how we're integrating these newfound resources into our curriculum. So Professor Dahl, who was nice enough to show up, came to me over the winter break with this problem. So we're trying to catch an egg. This is for engineering dynamics. We're trying to catch a free-falling egg with a robotic arm. So the students learn about free-fall kinematics. They learn about how mechanical systems move. And we want to put it into implementation. So first of all, we start off with the problem parameters. Figure out the free-fall kinematics. More math. Even more math. And the math just keeps on growing until you finally have kind of a model of your system. And this isn't even complete. Then we get to the next part, which is coding. Every engineering student's kind of worst nightmare. I mean, coding is not a fun thing to do until you actually get to a level where you can do things with it. So after the result of hard work, and I think this is about half a semester's worth of work for a student, this is their result. It's not very... Can anyone tell us if we were able to catch the egg? Did it work? What intuition do we get from graphs? I mean, I get excited about graphs, but I don't think the average person does. So Joanna tasked me with designing and building a robot for this class to do just that. And here's our result in slow motion. So this is from one of the initial experiments, and as you can see, the egg did not break. So the important thing, probably the most important reason we did this, is the results are observable and quantifiable. So we can tell very easily, did the egg break? Did we do our math correctly, or do we need to go back to the drawing board? It actively engages students in the learning process, and it's kind of a reward for working through all the math, all the difficult parts of the problem. It's fun to go into the lab. One important thing that I saw were students were actively engaged. They were asking questions, and that's the big thing. They were asking intelligent questions. What happens if we drop the egg from a higher height? Will it break? We found out a difference of 2 centimeters, less than an inch. The egg would hit the robot after the robot stopped. Of course, it bounced off, made a mess on our floor, which I had to clean up. Thank you very much. It introduces students to the considerations needed for practical implementation of the theory, which, as I discussed before, in theory and practice are the same. In actuality, they aren't. You have delays in systems. This is what's called a discrete system, where all the math is done in continuous time. Big difference in implementation versus the theory. And one kind of last note is this is a very effective way of integrating programming, CAD design, and 3D manufacturing into curriculum. That's one thing that people are talking about. Maker spaces, 3D printing, these are big buzzwords in education. Projects like this are a very effective way in integrating this into the engineering curriculum. So I think that's all I have. Thank you guys very much for listening to me. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me or Philip. Thank you.
Thank you for this opportunity to talk about one of the things that I love most about my job, which is spending time with students. I'm going to tell you a bit about my work and support of Nadja Walton when she was funded through the Health Equity Scholars Program. But it was really hard to we both had confusion about what we would talk about because Nadja is a member of the Honors College. Nadja is a McNair Fellow student. Nadja has volunteered and worked in my lab on population science through the U54 training corps in the early iteration of that grant. And I could go on. I think she's a superstar, and it's been a great experience to have time with her in the lab. And it was also hard for us to decide what to talk about, because even though Nadja's been with me just over a year and a half, she's worked on probably about 5 projects. She is a co-author on papers that we're have in the pipeline for publication and revise and resubmit, and some that are going out. So we restricted ourselves to talk about one project and talk about the time that she was funded through the HES program. And in this project, it was actually driven by a graduate student in clinical psychology who had researched with a behavioral medicine medical doctor looking at a rat model of hypoxic ischemic injury. And so we're going to tell you about that project today. So a little more about the trajectory. I first met Nadja when she applied to the U54 Outreach Corps. She worked in population science. We were looking at cancer health disparities, and Nadja was matched with one of our faith-based organizations, so she had to travel to the community. Very quickly, she learned to be open and receptive to the community and their ideas, and very committed to transferring what we understood to be evidence-based practices for reducing and preventing cancer. She got funding from me to pay for part of her summer and her RA-ship with me, and she again joined this project for the HES program. It's health disparities because we tried to focus on a disorder that shows inequities and who it impacts. And in that time, again, because of just how phenomenal she is, I thought, why not apply for the McNair Fellowship? Why not apply for these resources? Why not think about Honors College? And so Nadja has had opportunities through work on this project to get additional funding to defray the cost of her time here, to have paid opportunities to share with the scientific community her findings. So after just working with me for one summer, she went off and presented at the annual biomedical research conference for undergraduates. And at Abercrombie, I heard from colleagues that she was phenomenal, and they were really excited to see her. And through that opportunity of finding me through U54 and then joining this project, she continued research on this hypoxic ischemic injury project. So HIE impacts 3 to 5 out of every 1,000 term births. So these are infants that are developing normally, but something at delivery impacts their overall growth. It can be a knotted umbilical cord or some complication during the birth process. Reduces the blood flow to the body and, most importantly, the brain, and reduces oxygen as well. And in severe HIE cases, in about 23% of those who suffer this, it leads to fatalities. The health disparity aspect of this is that it's much worse for children of poor mothers. It's much worse in third world countries than it is in first world countries. And if there's high stress for the mother because of finances, insecurity in the household, the outcomes for the infants are also worse. This injury causes select damage, as I suggested, to the brain, most notably in the hippocampus, which hopefully you're using now as you're listening to this new information and all of these acronyms. It's important for neurogenesis and causing new brain growth, and it's particularly targeted with the HI injury. The only known treatment for mitigating the worst outcomes, and even some of the moderate ones, is hypothermia, but it has to happen within 6 hours. The problem with this is that the injury and the impact of the injury isn't obvious because most of it's central. So there are no really outward signs of the injury and this cascade of damage and atrophy that's happening on the brain level. So even though, because we don't have this, there's no effective treatment unless you can clearly identify it as injury, and within 6 hours, if you have the infant in hypothermic environment, you can reduce the poor outcomes for the infants. And now other things that are being applied is adding adjuvants with hypothermia to try to improve the outcome for the infants. We also know from animal studies, which is a subject close to my own heart, that you can model some of this injury and you can investigate other potential interventions. And so some research has shown that there are nutritional interventions that you can use that can reduce the outcome for this animal model. You can institute early handling in the early life of the neonates, the small rat pups, and you can also reverse the damage. And then you can add daily enrichment or continuous environmental enrichment, and that can also reverse some of the learning and memory deficits that are a particular target for this injury. But some of that early intervention work is a little inconsistent, and it's a process to translating from what happens in my rat lab to what goes on in clinical research. But it is an area that's of interest to us. And so without further ado, I'll let you hear from Nadja about our research questions and some of the findings that she made.
Well, thank you, Tiffany, for all of your kind words. And as she said, this was one of the first projects I had when I came into the lab. Until this day, it is one of my favorite projects ever. I mean, I worked in the hospital, I've worked abroad, and this project really hit close to home for me. And also being able to work with rats was pretty amazing. So our first aim for this study was to determine whether or not the closed nest box that we were introducing as a treatment actually increased maternal caretaking behavior for the rats induced with hypoxic ischemic brain injury. And how we measured this was by using a weight gain proxy to see if the maternal caretaking was increased. Our second aim investigated if the closed nest box environment actually promoted resiliency to neurodevelopmental delays that you see in rats injured with HI. And finally, we investigated whether any neurobehavioral gains from the closed nest box after the injury were reflected in cellular morphometric changes in the cortex and the hippocampus. So this is kind of a breakdown of our study's timeline. And I came in right as the rats were giving birth. So we received the pregnant rats from a breeding facility around embryonic day 10. And they were randomized to either the animal facility or the treatment closed nest box. On postnatal day 7, the pups were randomized and assigned to receive either the HI injury, a sham, or a mock surgery, or no surgery or treatment at all. The HI procedure involved isoflurane, anesthesia, and double ligation of the right carotid artery. And afterwards, HI pups were placed in an oxygen deprivation chamber for 90 minutes. Following this, we began neurodevelopmental testing, where we measured physical and neurodevelopmental aspects, including weight gain and the emergent startle response. We also measured motor coordination through rope suspension, an open field apparatus, negative geotaxis, and anxiety-like behavior on an elevated plus maze. So as I said before, weight gain was our proxy of measuring the maternal caretaking behavior. And as you can see in the graph, the pups who were, whether they had the injury or not, but those in the closed nest box, they gained weight at a increasing rate than those compared to the animal facility. But it was great that we actually saw those who had the HI injury were also gaining that rapid weight gain. And these are results from our neurodevelopmental tests. So here you also see that those in the closed nest box with the HI injury, they were gaining these developmental aspects of their development sooner than those who were just placed in the animal facility. Here, we did negative geotaxis, as most mammals can feel gravity being enforced on themselves. So what we did is we placed the rats on an incline, and we faced them downward, and we waited to see how long it took them to turn themselves around and then reach the top of the incline. And from this, we saw that those who were in the closed nest box actually turned themselves around and reached the top sooner than those who were in the animal facility. And we also saw that they, on an earlier postnatal day than those in the animal facility, would respond to a simple stimulus. And then after we did all the behavioral testing, we were able to see the actual cellular happenings of what was going on during this process. So from here, we see a postmortem analysis of the brain tissue, where you see a greater disparity of brain tissue in both males and females from the animal facility compared to those who were severely injured from the closed nest box. And that you see on the left-hand side. This disparity is also seen in pups with moderate damage as a result of the HI injury. We also saw related differences within the closed nest box, where female brain tissue morphology was more intact compared to that of males in the same housing condition. And then on the right side, due to the severity of the HI injury and the oxygen deprivation, with human infants, you see a slight neurogenesis in the hippocampus because it's aggressively targeted during this injury. And in our model, the hippocampus was also impaired. However, the degree of severity of infarct varied between the two housing conditions. And you can see on the right, you can see that there's more morphology and there's less of a disparity compared to E, where the tissue is completely infarcted. In conclusion, the HI injury in pups housed in the normal animal facility exhibited less weight gain, delay in neurodevelopment, less motor coordination, and greater short and long-term memory deficits. By contrast, HI pups reared in the closed nest box were spared of these delays and deficits. There was also a sex-dependent relationship that we saw amongst the pups in the closed nest box, where females performed better on Morse water maze testing and their hippocampal and cortex tissue were more intact.
So I was just going to tell you about, from my perspective, what the experience was like in the lab. Nadja attended weekly lab meetings, and in that she had to practice scientific communication. She's presenting primary research articles from the HI literature. She's talking about common practices both in clinical settings and in this experimental rodent setting. She's learning to read primary articles and critique them, and also working as a part of a team. So she's at a team in her presentation. She's working as a team member in collecting the data. It's a really big project. It was daily testing. I don't know if you caught that from the timeline, but from embryonic day 10 through postnatal day 60, daily testing for the most part. So Nadja was a part of a larger team who came in on weekends and tested Sunday through Sunday. There's no break there. So she also gained a host of bench science skills, from mixing stock solutions to supporting the HI surgery and certainly the hypoxic injury of the pups, monitoring the pups in the vivarium and securing their health and well-being throughout the testing period. This is a unique area of exploration, so she got to be on the cutting edge of science because currently there are no non-invasive treatments for HI injury in clinical populations. Like I said, this work came out of a project with a collaboration with a clinical student who works with an MD who works with HI injured human infants. So there's an opportunity to share our findings with the real world. Nadja not only presented a few months after joining the lab at Abercrombs, but also has presented repeatedly at the New England Science Symposium, which is a part of Harvard Medical School, which encourages students from underrepresented groups who do research in biomedical science to talk about their work. And again, she didn't stop there, so now she's a McNair Fellow, very active in the Honors College. She's adopted psychology as a minor, which I think mentoring means you mentor people to be a better self. And Nadja doesn't have to look like me in her final career path, but she chose to add psychology as a minor, and so she's going to do a year-long honors project on one of the other 5 projects that she's been working on in her time with me.
So my experiential learning and transformative mentoring has really been crucial to my success here at UMass. I've had an opportunity to get one-on-one mentoring with Dr. Donaldson, In this, she has afforded me the greatest opportunity to learn bench science techniques, to develop confidence in making stock solutions, doing histology, and immunohistochemistry, morphological analysis, a series of neurodevelopmental batteries, and behavioral testing, assisting with surgery and hypoxic ischemic injury, and postmortem analysis of brain tissue and organ extraction. This training and skill development is impressive, but more than that, I have been fortunate to work one-on-one with an amazing mentor. Getting to know Dr. Donaldson, I've realized more and more that I've encountered a phenomenal leader, scientist, and overall human being. I was also given the opportunity to function as an independent junior scientist and led a project that would develop into my honors thesis, as she spoke about. In developing this project, I had to breed rats so that we could produce a high and low anxiety trait line. We mated animals and patiently waited for the first signs of impregnation and gestational growth. But during this time, we were also attending lab meetings weekly. And during one of our weekly lab meetings, we were looking for a paper to present for the next week. And Tiffany came across a paper whose methods actually resembled a lot of what I was planning to do for my thesis. So I was devastated. After careful planning, scheduling, and mating, we had been scooped. So Dr. Donaldson was unflappable, creative, and flexible, and she worked with me to restructure the study. And now I have one that gives me more depth, and it honestly, it fits more of what I want to investigate as a junior scientist. Dr. Donaldson has inspired me to choose a career of a physician scientist and has helped prepare me by inviting me to develop and hone my skills conducting research at the bench. I've been able to expand my career vision and develop the attributes of a scientist that otherwise I wouldn't have been able to see for myself. I've also been given opportunities to work in multi-age teams of graduate and undergraduate students and have become more competent and confident that I can train newcomers and encourage others to come into the lab. In the lab, I'm able to work on projects that both excite me and inspire me to be a better student, a better citizen, and a better scientist. As I strive towards my goals, I have an immense amount of gratitude for the training I have received with Dr. Donaldson and look forward to one day returning her investment in me.
Okay, hello everybody. My name is Lena Canyon,
And my name is Alyssa Benalfew.
and we're gonna tag team this. So, we decided to call our present. We're big on alliteration, so we decided to call it Relationship Research and Rewards. And we'll talk about a little bit about us. You can start.
Thank you. Like I said, my name is Alyssa Benalfew. I'm a senior here at the University of Massachusetts, Boston. My major is philosophy and public policy. I have a minor in health. It's health and society, basically, out of the history department. I'm also a member of the Honors College. I am a former intern and volunteer at the Edward M. Kennedy Institute for the United States Senate. And currently on campus, I am the senior peer mentor for CLA First, which is our first-year success program for first years.
Can we just? She does so much. Can we just give her a minute? Great. So my name is Lena Canyon, and I run the volunteer and intern program at the Edward M. Kennedy Institute right across your campus. A couple of things that I wanted to know about myself so that you can understand a little bit about why this mentorship relationship is so important and factors that go into the actual research and relationship creation are that I am a first-generation immigrant, so I came here from Colombia. I'm also a first-generation was a first-generation college student. So I graduated from Suffolk in 2013 with a major in sociology and government, and that's kind of how I ended up in the role that I am in. I have a big dedication to the advocacy of underrepresented groups as part of one myself, and I value volunteerism and unpaid internships, right? So like people signing up to do things for free, that's kind of my thing, and challenging them in that, and then putting them in situations that continue to challenge them to be uncomfortable and become better people. And so that will come into play in a little minute here. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about what we do at the Institute, because I don't know if you can tell I'm not a faculty staff here at UMass. So the way our volunteer and intern program runs is we are a mixture between a museum and an educational experience, right? So we have visitors come through, but we also have student groups. And the way that it's run is through interaction with technology, but also with volunteers and interns. So they're really the soul of our institute. And they're the ones in the front lines welcoming people and helping them interpret the exhibits. When I started working there about a year ago, which is around the same time that I met Alyssa, the program ran the following way, which was that volunteers and interns were kind of exhibit interpreters. So they would greet, they had some customer service experience, they had a huge passion for either civic education, history, politics, and they just had that, content interest. And so when I came and I saw this and I was like, this is such a great program, it can be so much more. So we decided to pilot a couple of things, because there were two things that I noticed that definitely needed to change. And one of them was having an educational component to our internship, right? So we wanted the interns to come in and get all of these skills that they are already gaining, but we wanted to add that educational in there. And the second was the diversity. So not only, within our visitorship, but within our staff and our volunteers and interns, I wanted to increase diversity so that every diverse person that came in through the Institute could see someone that looked like them. They could relate more, and in that create that relationship that would help them interpret the content in a more personal way. So we piloted that summer, where Alyssa was one of our interns that applied. So it was a pilot program. So this isn't, a research thing that I've been doing for years that I have students come through. It was just kind of like, this is the basis of it. This is what we're going to focus on. It's going to take a creative path. So we're going to allow students to be very creative in what they want their projects to be. We are going to provide minimal structure, which is going to be, they definitely have to write a proposal. It definitely has to relate to our mission, which is increasing civic engagement. They have to do research the whole semester. So whether it be the summer semester, the spring semester, they have to do some type of research. And then at the end, they have to present. And those were the guidelines given to all of the interns last summer. So with Alyssa coming in was really interesting, because she already had all of these, the first ones that you see here under visitor experience. She was very charismatic. I mean, if you don't know Alyssa on this campus, I see some of you smile, I'm sure you do. You already know that even when she leaves the room, her presence kind of stays, right? So she came in, she's like, I'm really excited. I'm right across the street. I can't wait to start. And so we took that energy. We're like, this is great. So you're going to help us really shape this program and turn it into, who knows what, and continue to evolve it. I'm very happy to say that she was a stellar intern and then stayed with us. Even after her internship ended, she was like, I love this place. I'm going to stay on as a volunteer. So that's a little glimpse on what's coming. So Alyssa came in with already that, but I think the other really big thing that drew me to Alyssa was not just her attitude and her passion for the content, but was representation, right? So the fact that just overall in our government, we already lack representation as people of color or as women of color. I myself was a person who wanted to be mentored and had so many people interested in mentoring me. And when I did choose my path of interest, like the career that I wanted to go into, none of my mentors looked like me. So they were all older Caucasian women, which I'm very happy to have in my life and very thankful for. But there is something to be said about somebody that does look like you or has had the same experiences as you. And at Suffolk, I was able to find somebody. This one Venezuelan woman took me under her wing and was like, not only am I telling you that this is possible, but I'm telling you that this is possible because I did it and I went through it. And that was extremely powerful for me. And in my relationship with Alyssa, I've seen that that's been extremely powerful for us. And then lastly, after you create that, representation, the field of interest, you create it in your mentorship, and then you kind of add on like a third layer, right? So not only was that door open for me, but now I've opened this door to Alyssa, and then she's opened this door for many other people. And in that, you have kind of a tier of empowerment, which I think has been one of the biggest things that we can speak about in our relationship. What you take?
That's a lot. Okay, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about my background, I guess, and how I ended up at the Institute and where I am today. So, firstly, I was told as an undergrad that I need to do an internship. An internship, some type of study abroad, some experiential learning, something to help me narrow down my path as well as give me some experience for when I do join, the workforce. Now, as a student at UMass Boston, I work a part-time job. I work 2 part-time jobs, actually, one on campus and one off campus. And a lot of the students I work with here on campus also have 2 or 3 part-time jobs or go to school full-time, they're in class full-time. So a lot of us struggle to juggle multiple responsibilities. So every semester I would check my career online, and I would see I can't do any of these internships because they fall within the same hours that I have to work, or I'd work all day and then do my other job in the evening, and I just did not have time. And obviously I needed money. So one of my advisors who works in, or used to work in the CLA First office, told me about the Beacon Student Success Fellowship, where they would grant money to students doing summer experiential learning of basically any type. So I applied and won $2,000, which was the highest award to date at the time, to subsidize my learning at the Edward M. Kennedy Institute, as well as my research project, which you see featured on the right, which was Senator Kennedy's work on healthcare legislation. He worked on things crucial to the passing of the Affordable Care Act of 2010 that we still have today as our current piece of healthcare legislation. Well, with the Beacon Student Success Fellowship, without it, I wouldn't have been able to do my internship at the EMK. And I liked it so much, I stayed on to volunteer in the fall and a little bit in the spring. And just Lena's work was instrumental in keeping me so focused and dedicated to my goals. I can mention one instance in particular. It was during the fall, probably around late October, early November, and I went to volunteer for some random event going on after hours at the EMK. And I got there, and Lena was so excited to see me after not seeing me since school started. And she just brought me in her office and was basically talking to me about, how are you? What's going on with you? Are you still applying to grad school? What do you want to do? How do you want to change the world? 'Cause she just has that type of mentality. She just has that air about her. So we sat for almost an hour and just talked about what can we do as individuals to basically change the world, because we have the idea that somehow we can. But that type of conversation and those type of conversations that we have about our goals and about our dreams, that's what keeps me focused, because at the time I didn't know that I would get accepted to a graduate program in public health or 2 or 3 programs here in Boston. That's just not something I thought was even within the realm of things I can do. So having people like Lena, as well as people on campus, provide that type of strong, direct, I would even say intrusive mentorship, those are the people that keep students going. So I just need to stress that, and I can't stress it enough. Working at the Edward M. Kennedy Institute, I was able to work with a number of different groups all around Boston. There were international students coming here from UMass Boston, going to learn about civic engagement at the Institute. There were, one of my last tours was the Girl Scouts from all over Massachusetts, and they came and they were so excited to learn all about democracy. They had this idea of what democracy would be, and it was really interesting to kind of guide them through the institute itself, and as well as the tablets and the knowledge and everything. And just understanding that all of these different student groups, as well as families who come to visit the Institute, they all want to learn more about Senator Kennedy and civic engagement, and you need to meet them where they are. Now, that's what I'm going to relate to mentoring, because Lena could have walked in and seen me as well as any other intern and said, here's what this is going to be like for you, and here's the experience, and you're going to do this research project, and that's it. But instead, she met me where I was and said, well, what do you want to do? You as an individual here at the Institute, you at your school, and you in life. And that's why I think mentorship is crucial to basically helping students accomplish their goals. Through the Edward M. Kennedy Institute, I was able to reaffirm my commitment to my chosen field of study, which is public health. And I was kind of nervous about that, because at UMass Boston, we don't have a public health major and not necessarily a minor. They created kind of a history of medicine program. As yet. They created a history of medicine program through the history department. It's a new minor. and I heard that I'm like one of the first people to graduate from the minor because I've taken all the classes in basically the same semester because it was just incredible. I just have to tell you, it's incredible. But I was nervous about applying to schools and telling them I have the basis to learn and to study at your institution without having that foundation that other students may have at other institutions. But through the research project as well as other things on campus, I know that I'm more than ready. It's going to be fine. I've been able to network with wonderful people at the Institute. A gentleman there whose name I never remember, he handed me a transcript of a conversation that Ted Kennedy had with three other senators about the Affordable Care Act before it was the Affordable Care Act. And I was able to read that and incorporate it into my research somehow without actually saying I read a transcript of a conversation. So that was pretty exciting. I again, was able to link this research project to public policy, which is something I'm very passionate about. I just came back from UMass Amherst last week where we presented on my honors senior thesis, excuse me. It is Healthcare as a Human Right, the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act. I gave a thorough policy analysis of the Affordable Care Act, as well as basically the philosophical foundation as to why we have rights and why healthcare should be considered as one of those rights. And lastly, the Institute, as well as mentorship, left a lasting impression on me, as you can tell. I have taken students that I have at CLA First, and I've sent them to the Institute. A lot of them are interested in government and policy and many of the same things as myself, including history. And I said, I have 100 mentees about. And the sophomore program, the add-on to CLA First, they have about another 20. And I would tell them about my experiences and tell them about the value of mentorship and finding people who can help you accomplish your goals. And they said, I want to do that too. So I sent a lot of them over to the EMK. And it just said, you can use me as a reference, but if you go, you have to excel. You have to treat every visitor with respect. You have to learn as much as you can about the material that's forever changing, just like our government. So just be the best that you can be. And that's what Lena was talking about, that kind of tiered level of mentorship and empowerment. Because it started with Lena, it came to me, and I love to pass that on to my students.
This is a picture of Alyssa featured in the UMass Boston at the Edward Kennedy Institute. To highlight some relationship and rewards, right? So why is this even important? And I know that we didn't spend a lot of time talking about her actual research project. That's because it would probably take another hour. She was one of our presenters that had tons and tons of information on the slides and didn't even look at the presentation once. She was just like, and then this got passed, and then this law got passed, and then this happened, and we're like, whoa, okay, you are very passionate about healthcare. What are you gonna do about it? So to talk a little bit about the relationship and rewards, aside from the amazing job that she did do on her educational project, and of course exceeding the expectations for the visitor experience, already having coming in with those skills, I think is watching her skill growth, right? So you have Alyssa, who comes in already very charismatic, already kind of setting the bar up here. You're like, how is she going to top it? But then you see her taking those skills and then polishing them, like perfecting them, right, throughout her time. And I'm sure that some of you can kind of relate to that. Like you see a student that comes in and kind of already knows what they're doing, and then as the semester goes on, they kind of mold it and they perfect it until the end. I'm sure Alyssa can give all of you a tour at the Edward Kennedy Institute with her eyes closed. I'm sure she can tell you all about the history of the Senate, the people of the Senate, the milestones of the Senate, all with her eyes closed and just reciting it from experience. I think the other thing is the recognition for her achievements, right? So just the fact that she was able to solidify her career path and then apply to go into this program at Northeastern, and I think that's where she's chosen that she's going to go. But also on our end, being rewarded for her achievements, we're constantly, praising Alyssa. Not only are you doing a great job, but now you're going to train the incoming interns. So now we put her in a training role, right? And we have her kind of set the expectation for the incoming interns. We recently had an appreciation dinner, and little did we know with the alliteration, we gave her the Best Beacon Award, and it had nothing to do with the Beacon program, but she has brought in so many referrals, and they're all so strong, and they come with such high expectations already, set by her, and then set by us, and they meet them. That has been extremely, the contribution is amazing to the internship program that she has done. The second thing is then not only being a participant, but then also taking on the role of a leader. And what comes with being a leader is being able to give feedback and how to change our program. So, like I said, that was our pilot program. It has changed a lot since then in this 1 year, 3 semesters. But I think she has contributed a lot to that because she is very frank and she is able to observe something and say, "Hey, I think this needs to change. I think this, it's just my opinion, but like this kind of could work the other way." And we've incorporated some of the things that she has given to us, and in that shaped a better program that continues to grow for our interns. The second thing I wanted to know about the relationship and rewards that extends beyond just Alyssa and myself is the relationship between the institute and this institution, right? So like I said, I'm not a faculty member, so it's not like I'm gonna be here every semester teaching your students, but we can create partnerships with this institution in many ways and have these rewarding experiences. So Alyssa was one of, I believe, 20 interns that started that summer. And as our program grows and we continue recruitment, we work very closely with MPK here at UMass to recruit more interns from here. We're right next door, and especially in times like right now, we need civic engagement to be kind of at the center of everyone's learning, no matter at what level they're at. Another partnership that we're doing is with the Gaston Institute. And again, that increasing diversity and increasing education to the students that do come in and are like, I don't see any senators that look like me. Interesting. And then having that material be taught to them by someone that does look like them, it's so important when it comes to education. So with Gaston, we were able to host the Hispanic Heritage Month closing day, in which brought on so many Hispanic and Latin families that hadn't been to the Institute before, and we actually ran a program in Spanish for the first time ever. And that was really exciting. And again, it really met people where they're at in different levels. So I already talked about referrals. And then the last thing that I do want to say is, so one thing that we do at the Institute is the visitor experience. They go through, they pick a category at the end, and we ask them to pledge to it, right? So we have like healthcare, education, civil rights, and the visitor picks the category and pledges to do something for their community related to that category. And that's kind of how we see our experience going beyond the walls of the Institute, and that's kind of how we say that we're living up to EMK's legacy. And I wanted to point out that not knowingly, we've done this with Alyssa, or Alyssa has done this for us, is that she's come in and she's picked a category. She said, healthcare's my thing. And we said, okay, let's see how far you can take it. And then she, at the end of her semester, beyond her semester as a volunteer, said, I'm going to commit my life to this, and this is going to be my career path, and you have impacted me so much in this that you are going to be part of this journey with me. And what better way to serve the mission that we say that we are serving every day than by this living, breathing person who is going to go out and do great things in the healthcare field. So thank you, Alyssa.
Thank you, Lena. And the work continues. There are several UMass Boston students in this photo. I'd like to point out Summer and Ashley and Phil, and for those of you who know who they are right up there in the front. Oh, and the Chancellor's daughter, who I love. She's up there. But yes, thank you.
I'm Rajni Srikanth. I'm the Dean of the Honors College at UMass Boston, also a faculty member in the English department, and I have the pleasure of giving you sort of closing remarks. There's been so many wonderful things said today that I feel that anything I say is only going to sound superfluous. So I am going to take from what we've heard and use maybe 2 or 3 minutes to remind ourselves of what our speakers have told us today, so that we can ingrain these messages into our hearts and minds and carry them forward. I want to start first by saying something that needs to be said often, which is that faculty members who teach at UMass Boston are truly unique. I know that unique itself is sort of this sort of special category, and to say truly unique sounds, excessively sort of emphatic. But I do want to say that faculty members here are truly unique. And the reason for that is, in most other institutions, and I have actually, been to several other institutions and met faculty from many other institutions, they take a lot of pride in their research, and they are wonderful researchers, and, hurrah. But They will sometimes talk about their work with students as kind of ancillary, as even a distraction, as something that takes them away from their research. I want to tell you that on this campus, research and teaching are completely intertwined. Research and mentoring are equal partners. And this needs to be said because people who don't know this campus come here and say, oh, you know, we want to make sure that we do a good balance between research and mentoring. And I say, but that's already happening and happening in a glorious way over here. So please, let's congratulate our faculty who do this so wonderfully, who give of themselves, who are excellent researchers, who are doing cutting edge work, but who never, ever, ever forget that their fundamental responsibility is to our students. So now for the students, of course, all of us who teach here know how special you are. I think any of us who stays here past 2 years, you have immediately hooked us and we never want to leave, okay? I want to tell you about research because research is a very crucial form of mentoring. And I have the privilege of talking to students all the time because, you know, the Honors College requires senior thesis projects and senior research projects from our students before you can graduate from the Honors College. So we're constantly asking them, do you have a research project? Do you have a research mentor? Who is your research mentor? Would you like us to find you one if you have difficulty finding one? And what is always amazing to me is that initially Honors College students have this sort of trepidation is, how can I do research? I mean, if research is the construction of new knowledge, what do I have what it takes to construct new knowledge? Do I have what it takes to ask the relevant question that opens up sort of these areas that need to be charted? And then I watch what happens after they meet a faculty member with whom maybe they'd like to pursue this journey. They spend a little bit of time working with them, and all of a sudden, there is something in the eyes that lights up. And I've had the distinct pleasure of walking down hallways and seeing students who, you know, may have seemed a little timid and shy, and suddenly they're walking with this emboldened, you know, whatever stride, and they're smiling, and I stop and say, well, what happened? Like, what's going on? And they say, you know, I love research. And so that is always, you know, this kind of story that they tell us about how they've gotten the research bug is incredibly validating for the work we do and for our faculty members here on campus. I do love your alliteration, which was, let me see if I can find it, relationship, research, and rewards. I do think it's a very, very rewarding relationship. And I want to turn now to Lina Kenyon because of the incredible opportunity that you provided, Alyssa. I think we don't know enough or sufficiently enough about those of our internship site supervisors who have this kind of transformational impact on our students. And I think it's very important for us to make sure that we recognize them, encourage them, bring them into our campus, you know, cultivate those relationships, strengthen those relationships, so that we can have more students have the sort of transformational experience that Alyssa did. So thank you very much, Lina. That is extraordinary work that you've done. The last thing I want to say, which is really important, is that I think Alyssa alluded to it, and perhaps Grant and also Naja alluded to it, how money enters into the picture. Now, we know that a lot of our students need to work in the summertime. They need to, well, they're doing part-time jobs even, or full-time jobs, even during the academic semester. So taking time out to do research requires time away from a paying job often, or taking time out to do an internship may require you to reject a paying job. Now, we can't do that to our students, and so the Beacon Student Success Fellowships are crucial, absolutely crucial, to enabling our students to pursue this passion for research and to helping them acquire the skills that they need to go on to graduate study and also to employment. So I want to emphasize, I want to stress how important it is for us to continue to build the Beacon Student Success Fellowship Fund. And if there are any potential donors in this room, I want to tell you how important your contributions are to this. But please, please remember, our students need your support because they have all kinds of potential, but unless we make it possible for them to develop this potential, we will never know the many ways in which they're going to be able to change our world for the better. Thank you so much.